Support comes from Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to sustainable and sound conservation of the state's forests, which support more than 41,000 Missouri jobs, resulting in a $10 billion industry. ChooseWood.com.
From St. Louis Public Radio. This is St. Louis on the Air.
I'm Elaine Cha. Before I joined St. Louis on the Air, the show team began a community listening tour, a handful of sessions held in different places in the station's listening area that invited folks to meet in person to share and talk. Not only that, we created a listener survey that garnered several hundred responses. You all were ready to talk with us, and we were ready to hear it. Two of our team's producers, Emily Woodbury and Miya Norfleet, took the lead in these efforts, and they're here to heat up the mic this afternoon with details about how it all went down and continues moving today. If you hear excitement in my voice, it's because this community engagement stuff is my jam. So welcome, and welcome to both of you.
Hello. Thanks, Elaine.
So Emily, tell us what inspired the idea of listening sessions.
I think what inspired it was just a feeling of wanting to know, are we serving our community in the best way possible? I think there's a lot of discussions around things like Twitter being an echo chamber, especially, if you're a journalist on Twitter, you follow a lot of journalists on Twitter. We're all in these kind of echo chambers. And for me personally, I want to be producing radio segments that people not only enjoy, but feel like brings value to their lives. So, having never had a chance to do something like this before, I was really excited to actually hear from people, what do you want from your local talk show? How can we best be serving you? Are we doing it well? If so, how? And then how can we improve too?
So this was something that had never been done, at least in the time you were here, or are we talking like the history of St. Louis on the Air?
The history of St. Louis on the Air. This was the very first time the show has embarked on something like this. And I think, too, among public radio stations in general, this is a pretty new concept. I don't know of too many other shows or stations that are have engaged in this in the past. I think now many more are starting to. But
And Miya, you joined the show in the summer, from what I understand. For you coming in as a new team member, what made it feel like the right time to do something like a community listening session, tour, so to speak?
I think it made most sense because we had, as a team, a lot of stuff to figure out. It was a new beginning for the whole team and the show itself. So, I joined in June, and then another producer had joined just 3 months before me. So it was just like, you know what? Clean slate, let's do something different and do it more often and, just talk to more people.
Emily, where did these community listening sessions happen, and how did you choose them?
Yeah, so we wanted to start with the audience we had because they are most familiar with our show. So we did a station community listening session where we invited people on air. I'm sure you heard announcements on air that we were doing this, inviting you to come, inviting you to participate in the survey. So we started here at the station, and then we chose a few other places. We went to Rolla because that's one of our bureaus. Jonathan All, our reporter and now editor, is stationed in Rolla, and that's one of our listening areas. So we wanted to go out to Rolla to talk with people there. We did an arts listening session that wasn't location specific, but it actually came out of a conversation our intern Avery Leah Rogers had with one of her sources, where one of her sources was saying, hey, St. Louis is not a great hub for musicians and artists right now. There's a lot that could be improved. And so, she was, they were talking with him about this, and he said, hey, I can invite a few people. We could have a whole discussion about this. So that was an arts-themed listening session. How can we better cover the arts here in our city? And then we did one at Cherokee Street, too, because I think the folks on Cherokee Street, the community improvement district there, and just the community organizers in that neighborhood are very dedicated to their space. And, specifically some of the people who have been involved in organizing Love Bank Park, I was inspired by their community engagement. And I thought, these are people that know how to make things happen with very little support. They're just getting in there and doing it. I think we could learn a lot from them. So we wanted to go to Cherokee Street as well.
So it was very much a two-way thing then, not just you're going out. I mean, so much of the model has been community outreach, but it doesn't come in the other direction.
Anytime that someone's like, you know what, I like this, can we do this here? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. It can really be that simple.
And how did you choose the locations, like the specific places where things were happening?
Well, for the arts and the station, we held them here just because that was an easy place to hold it. In Rolla, we held it at Missouri S&T just because we wanted to make connections with folks at the college, and we had people from the college come. We had a student from the college come. But it was just also a nice community gathering space. We had people come from Salem, Missouri.
Yes.
Oh,
Shout
okay.
out to Thomas Haynes from Salem. We learned a lot from him. So people really came from all over, but the university was a good hub for that. And then on Cherokee Street, we chose Earthbound because it was actually an idea I got from Emily Tenhouse of the Community Improvement District. She just said, Earthbound is a good gathering place for this. A lot of organizations meet up here. And in fact, as we were at Earthbound that day for the session, there was an artist putting up decals, beautiful scans of brains for a community engagement project that this art studio was working on. So that was pretty cool.
And that led to something, right?
It did. Actually, so Con Christensen, she was actually at our community engagement session shortly after working on her own community engagement effort. And because of that, because of the conversations that she and I had that night, we actually ended up producing a segment about neuroblooms. And this is the main goal behind these community engagement sessions is to get good ideas for segments. And this is one that came out of it. And, for that segment, I talked with Brandon, who preferred not to give his last name, and Stevie Ball. They both got involved with neuroblooms through a Peter and Paul Community Services art class, and they were helping to install those neurobloom decals I talked about in shop windows. And the two are currently homeless, and they each live with various mental health conditions. And after that community listening session, after learning about the project, I met up with both of them on Cherokee Street, where Stevie told me that he learned a lot about his own diagnoses through this project.
I never really looked at my brain. I never really thought about my brain. I just knew it was up there and in there. But when I saw these pictures, it's like, woo, wow, this is what my brain is actually doing. And so it just brought awareness to me. I've learned that we all are one kind, one kin. We all bleed red blood. We all have the same tissue on the inside of our being. And we're all connected in one way or the other. And I just love it. We just connect.
Brandon said that as he was installing the decals, he was having lots of conversations with community members and business owners about how relatable the Neuroblooms project is.
Well, the stigma, some people think you crazy because you're diagnosed with this. But then you find out along the line, they get diagnosed with this, and then, they can be like, oh, okay, well, sorry for calling you crazy,
And Con Christensen, I'd love to play a clip from her as well. She organized this community engagement aspect of Neuroblooms, and here's what she told us about the impact that engagement had in the Cherokee Street neighborhood.
The art group at Peter and Paul is meant to be a program support to help these folks who, regardless of their mental health conditions, their homelessness is a stigmatizing condition as well. So this project has connected them to the community in a way that they would not have had it not been for art and community. Mm-hmm. And the public art component of the project, putting the neuroblooms in the windows, a QR code that gives information and gets people to stop and think and talk to each other. It has been a revelation for me as a person who lives on a street where I have neighbors that I did not know in that way until this project brought some of them out to say, yes, I want to participate in this, and here's why. And the stories that we've heard have been revealing, and I hope that it's going to continue to connect us.
I think that's so beautiful. You know, Con talking about that community engagement, about these connections made in real life. This isn't, something shared on the internet. These are real life, on the street connections. Just shows how powerful actually being there in person and talking with your neighbors can be. I actually learned a lot from her about what community engagement can be.
And it was not something that came out of a question necessarily that was prepared to be asked. It was something that was happening in that moment and in that space. Miya, how did people seem to respond in these spaces of community listening?
At first, I think people were more so like being ultra complimentary. But I usually would start my tables off if we had enough people to do breakouts, like with the joke saying, like, say it to my face, come on. And usually over time, it's like, okay, well, now I do have a criticism, but you're doing great. Like, I know we're doing great. We're still on air. Tell us how we can actually do better or what you think we're missing. So eventually we got there.
And why do you think that spirit and that practice is important to the show going forward?
It's important to the show going forward to me because it's a talk show. We should talk to people and we should listen. That's also part of talking. So the more practice that we get in that, the better.
How is this going to continue, Emily, in spirit and then like for real?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, one thing we have just from the community sessions we've had so far, we have just documents and documents of ideas. Some of them are big picture, like, we want to hear more in-depth coverage. We want to hear more ongoing coverage, more stories about identity. And some are really specific story ideas. And so we're going to be continuing to use those ideas, engaging with the people that shared them with us moving forward. I also want to say, I hope we do these community listening sessions for as long as the show is on air. This is this is not a one and done thing. This is an ongoing process that we want to continue to engage with folks. So I really encourage, if you are listening to this and you're like, hey, I have things to share with the team of St. Louis on the Air, I would love to see you at our next community listening session. We will keep you posted on where and when that is. And I should add that you can also get in touch with us anytime by emailing us at talk@stlpr.org, or you can leave us a voicemail at 314-516-6397. That's 314-516-NEWS. And you can connect with us on our new St. Louis on the Air Facebook group.
Yes, please do that. There's another note here that the stlpr.org/survey link is still very much alive and waiting for your responses. So you can get in touch with us that way as well. Emily Woodbury is senior producer of St. Louis on the Air, and Miya Norfleet is a producer for the show as well. Thank you both for talking with us.
Thank you. Thanks, Elaine.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Our podcast proudly supports St. Louis artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.